Hi and welcome to the last recap of this match, the World Championship match between the world champion Wenjun, who defended her title, and the challenger Lei Tingjie. Today's game, number 12, the last game of the match, Wenjun came well prepared, surprised us all, surprised her opponent, and played an almost perfect game. Let's take a look. Without further ado, let's jump into the action. So after d4, d5, Wenjun was back to her normal ways of playing, but she went for a very sharp line, a very unbalanced line in the opening, surprising us all because we were expecting a more cautious approach, because the last game you don't want to over push with white and not to lose. However, as soon as move 11, we see the imbalanced position in terms of white having two connected pass pawns on the queen side. Black has a lot of game in the center, and this leads to very sharp games, which is indeed what happened. Here, after the opening moves, the first critical moment of the game, it came on move 14 for black. The computer says black had to play e5 and only then play c4, because the c4 immediate c4 move allows bishop c3, and after knight c5, white is in time to play a move like a5, breaking the barrier on the queen side, trying to push. Black cannot stop the pawns from being pushed to b6, and the tactical justification for this is that knight b3 is simply met by rook a2. The pawn cannot be taken because of the pin along the a file, and if black takes on d2, queen takes d2, knight e4, the queen just goes back, and those pawns are much more dangerous than black's pawns in the center. However, it was not clear. It needs a lot of calculations, because black really had a lot of choices here, starting with a move like a queen c5, followed by various sacrifices of the exchange on the for the a5 pawn, which was not clear, wasn't easy to find out, to calculate all the lines during the game. So the world champion chose to take on f6. This is a move, according to the engine, which lets all the advantage slip away, but it was not easy. Basically, the situation here, Wenjun took a long time before she went into an endgame. And the point of this endgame is that if a white manages to exchange her b pawn for black's dark e6 e pawn, those left pawns will be fixed and will become eventually very good targets for white pieces, which will give her a very pleasant edge, maybe even in a winning edge, depending on the way the position will be played. But it's not so easy to achieve. And here black could, for instance, play a move like bishop c5, exchanging the knights, taking the pawn on b5, rook a3 would come, and the position would remain pretty much dynamically equal. Instead of that, the challenger Lei Tingjie made her really one big mistake of this game. She played e5 here, which allows white, after knight f5, to get exactly what she wants. At the first sight, though, it looks like black's rooks are too active, and they will be able to break through, to push the pawn forward. White will not be able to stop. However, white is in time to do that. One possible move, the computer says even better move than what Wenjun played, was a bishop c3. But white played g4, a very natural move, making a loop for a king, meaning there will be no disasters along the back rank. And after g6, white played knight d4. This is the second critical moment of the game. The computer says the only move for black was to play rook b6. The point being that we must drive this bishop away from the long diagonal by means of f6. And if white plays f6, then we just exchange this bishop, and the rooks are strong enough to create counterplay. White does not have time to put a blockage on the c3 square. Lei Tingjie played the much more natural move rook b2, but after a very, very strong knight b1, which was played by the world champion, it turns out that, and bishop g7 is a slightly worse version of what happens. It turns out that the knight, after it comes to c3, black pawns are blocked, and white and the pawns become really big targets. The rooks cannot break this barrier of knights and the bishop. The best practical chance for black was here to exchange one pair of rooks, which would allow her to create some counterplay later on against the kingside pawns. It would make white's task of converting this game into a victory a much more difficult task. However, Lei Tingjie went for exchanging the bishops, and now with the rooks on the board, white rook can both protect the first rank, prevent a counterplay from black, and also participate in attacking the pawns. After this, it was really a matter of pure technique, which the world champion with Wenjun showed almost perfect technique. She never gave her opponent any chances. Basically, the plan for white here is that using the fact that white has more pieces, white has 3 pieces against 2 pieces for black, so we just attack any pawn we want with more forces, we win it, and we go back for the next pawn to win that as well. Lei Tingjie tried to complicate the matters, not waiting passively, but the world champion Wenjun was extremely alert throughout the rest of the game, and really didn't give her opponent any chances to even get close to a draw. Here, the last touch, this pawn is very important. It stays alive, so black cannot sacrifice a rook for an exchange or any kinds of such stuff. And now the d pawn, supported by the 2 very strong knights, will just decide the game. This is exactly what happened. The king goes, as you can see, all the pieces, the 2 knights, the king and the rook, support the pawn until the very last move, rook b8, cutting a black rook from protecting the d8 square, and inevitably a new queen will be born. And in our match, it's very symbolic. Lei Tingjie resigned where there was an inevitable new queen, but on the chess Olympus, the previous queen, Wenjun, stays as the world champion. Well-deserved victory. Kudos to her. A great match, error-wise. Very, very few errors by both players. One of the best matches in recent years. One of the highest qualities. Great preparations, great, exciting games, and big thanks to all our players, to our viewers who watched the match and cheered for the players. See you in the next match. Bye.